Hello everybody. Today we are asking the question, can you beat Last Epoch's campaign as a pacifist? Rules are simple. No active attacking, no active abilities. However, if something, hits me and then a bunch of stuff happens, that's obviously not my fault and is allowed. So, here we go. Also, NPC damage is going to be okay. Also, it's worth noting that I did use some affixes that I had picked up on previous runs, birds runs, and just messing around when the game fully launched. So that is totally what I did. I think you could have farmed that out maybe to get some early Thorns affixes, but I'm not sure it's even required, and you'll see what I mean by that later. For the start here, we end up just running past everything because we don't have a attack or, what qualifies as an attack yet. We can't forge our gear, we don't have any affixes, and we can't deal any damage. So we need to run until we hit, I don't even remember what his name is, the guy. There's a guy up here, and he will end up killing monsters for us. So we can use him, get some early experience, but the skill we actually need is like 5 points in, so we need to get 5 levels. Like normal, I've included a link in the description for where this build ended up and where I put my skill points and all of that if you're curious what crimes against Last Epoch I've committed doing this build. Here is our first well-earned skill point that we totally earned by standing around while monsters died because they were fighting, and or this guy just hyper-murders them for me, and then I just sit here getting all of the sweet, sweet, delicious experience. We also get to see all these cool whirlwind and hammer throw skills, which are wonderful, and they're just sitting there mocking me on my bar, and I should remove them, but I didn't. I should also take the attack off of right click. But didn't yet, but yeah, we're just dancing around the monsters at this point. So I run to the first town, turn in some quests, Grail, that's his name, and I end up joining the Fortune Guild, which increases drop rates and makes the game 100% better to play. And I've, your levels or reputation in this, Circle of Fortune carry over character to character. I'm playing offline, so all my offline characters get that bonus. It doesn't transfer over to online, which was why I'm not playing this character online, because I didn't want to regrind that. However, here, first in town, I look at all the gear, I'm sad, and then I use some of the affixes that I talked about previously to jam the 2 kinds of thorns onto my shield and chest plate. So the 2 kinds of thorns damage that you can get on gear is a flat number, like 10, right? It's just a fixed number. Or, because you can have both on both your shield and only your shield and your chest plate, is a percentage of the damage you take gets reflected back to the monster. And I assume there's some point where one overtakes the other, as the one if you had to choose, you want to put one on your gear versus the other one, but it ended up not being something I ever thought about. Okie dokie. Let's see how this thorns damage on my gear is going to treat me. Oh, well, that's certainly an amount of damage that those monsters, the first kind of real monsters in the game, are being dealt. Good. This will be great. This will be a great, great time. Okie dokie. What have we learned? Thorns damage doesn't hit. In, Last Epoch parlance, that means it won't trigger any effects in your skill trees or on your skills that have a on-hit trigger. So if your weapon has fire damage on it or a chance to ignite, you will not be igniting them when they hit you, and therefore it can't crit. It doesn't scale with stats to the best of my knowledge, and as I mentioned previously, it's either flat damage or percentage of the damage the monster dealt to you is reflected back to them. You still take all the damage, all the heaps and heaps of damage. Great, just great. Look at me, I'm so smart. I'm out of healing potions and I'm struggling on this boss, so I'm gonna town portal out of here, and then that'll heal me and I'll get my potions back, and then I'll be able to win. Oh no, that just fully heals the boss, and I have to do everything over again. Let's go. Cool. At this point in the run, we do not have the skill, retaliation, retribution, whatever it's called, that I'm aiming for, and I really hope that deals some better damage than this, because it's pretty miserable right now. I mean, it's bad. It's not Diablo 4 bad, but it's not great. I love this walking through a door, quest completed, there we go, boom, get our counterattack retribution skill. I love it. I love it, just such a silly thing of like, oh, you walk through a door, bing! Alright, so we have this is endgame right here, so we've got a 30% chance to use the retribution skill, which does 350 damage, and costs 0 mana. Okay, retribution, and in contrast to Thorn's damage, does hit, and therefore it can crit. It can apply on-hit status effects, both from your weapon and from your skill tree or from anything else. And as noted on the retribution tooltip, it scales with physical, melee, and strength. So that gives us a amazing way to scale up our damage by improving our weapon, which I was not really expecting when I set out to do this build. So that's an exciting little bit of... it's just exciting. More damage. Now we get to play the fun game of what kinds of damage will trigger both my Thorn's damage and the retribution skill. Thankfully, it feels like it's most things can trigger it. Rangers, people with bows, spellcasters, anything kind of that hits you will end up taking damage. Now, that excludes some kinds of background and various other things like that, so I try not to stand in that's a lot. I stand in everything and I take lots of damage, and I don't learn. Learning's for jerks. That retribution skill, you can just taste the damage when it procs. It deals an amazing amount of damage, more than, just my simple Thorns damage. And it's an AoE. It deals the Thorns damage deals, good damage, but it's no 6% chance right now, scaling up to 30 when it's maxed, retribution damage. I would call this the first major boss. It's got some big damage attacks, but it's overall it was a pleasant little boss fight. And I love it when bosses have some kind of attack that hits really quickly, deals low damage, but then gets reflected back or triggers all my abilities, and we end up dealing a lot of damage to the boss. That's one of the best parts. But first try, easy, no problems. Panion students here, they hurt a good amount. They each have their own themed attack, and we end up getting through the first two pretty quickly, but then that beam weapon guy took longer, and we I mean, we didn't die. It took a while. It didn't take a montage amount of time, but it took some time. But first try, easy, I guess. On we go. This Ford guy right here is the personification of background, and oof, that magma barf he does, that hurts. I probably have no fire resistance, but even if you, even if it did trigger my Thorn's ability, standing in that barf, wow, is a bad idea. Especially since I don't have a heal and I'm just relying on potions to keep myself alive. Yeah, we didn't die, but it's definitely it's a wake-up call of maybe paying attention a little more in combat. Here is Elder Panyon, the kind of the boss of this first kind of area, second area, whatever. And here's me trying out if I can stand in his lightning aura, because that seems to deal a lot of damage to him and to me. More me than him. And that resets the whole fight. So this was kind of my brain clicking in of like, okay, I can't just stand in all the attacks. I need to be at least a little smart, which is tough. It's a tough ask, but need to be a little smart and not stand in every single thing that might reflect damage back to him. I actually need to be a little strategic, which ended up being kind of a pleasant change. Some of these boss fights ended up being pretty long, but actually needing to move around and think about what attacks to stand in, what attacks to avoid, made it fun in some cases. Some of these boss fights, dragged on for a while, but it overall it was yeah, so far at least, it's been fun. With the defeat of Elder Panyon, that lets us unlock our mastery class, our first and only master class. When I first set out with this idea of a run bouncing around in my head, I was like, Paladin. Obviously Paladin. And then I looked at the skill trees and saw that the Forge thing had the actual, Thorns skill in it. And I was like, oh man, I don't want to play the Forge guy, I want the Paladin. Then I realized the Thorns thing is only 15 points into the Forge skill tree, which you can get to from any mastery. So I could still be a Paladin. So I went with Paladin. Because the Paladin gets the Aura and the Holy Aura skill. It gets you, I think it's 55% all resistance, 20% poison resistance, poison cleanse, or affliction, all affliction cleansing. And that frees up idle space, so you can spend your idle slots on more damage, which I was figuring, hey, damage out is going to be a problem. So that's what I went with. The Paladin tree also has healing of various kinds, the sigil things that you can cast, the heal has that heal, which I end up putting on right click, and it's the button I hit the most. And it's got some other weird, divine bolts and healing when on block, and a bunch of other fun kind of getting hit and then stuff happens, triggers, or things that trigger off of my retribution strike. So then, yeah, definitely a lot of cool fun things down the Paladin tree to build towards and look forward to. That next group of fights was nothing. Nothing interesting happened other than standing around. So we started off with the Void Amalgamation. The fight took a while, but yeah, easy, boring. Then the Primeval Dragon, I literally had to walk away from my computer, and I was just fine. I think I had some kind of cat-based crisis in my office. And then the Emperor's Remains, I think I moved around a little, but it was mostly just stand there, and then he spawns purple lasers, and then the purple lasers immediately die, which is great. And then we're on to the corrupted lake with the idol of boring and more boring, and we move on. And then you fight the boring guy on the boat, and then you find a weird leech guy, and then you have to fight them both at the same time, and it's all just bleh. We'll get through it. Somehow my character's abilities or something broke this boss guy, so he's just standing there frozen in time. Yuppers. So now he looks even more silly than he did already. I think he looks pretty cool, but frozen in time versions of him are very silly. I'm just glad he spawns these like guys. I mean, he's still attacking me. He just looks like he's frozen. But his little Grimbos he summons trigger all my spinning around in circles, which is an AoE, which hits him, and ends up increasing my damage quite a bit. At this point in the run, I am level 35. I'm dealing pretty good damage to various packs of monsters. The more monsters, the more damage I tend to deal out due to, just how everything works. And at this point, at level 35, you can equip a legendary called Sigion's Reprisal. This gives us a 33% chance to trigger the shield throw skill on block. And it gives us a flat 75 damage reflect on hit. And block chance, shield throw skill points, and more throwing damage based on something. I don't remember. It says later on in the video. Sure, this only has a 33% chance to happen on an event that has a 37% chance to happen. But we do get hit a lot. We do end up, law of big numbers. We end up getting... It'll trigger. It's fun. I like it. I like the idea of just seeing randomly shields going... Yeah, fun times. And it also gives us something to do with all these extra skill slots that I haven't known what to do. Because the shield throw that gets triggered will use your skill points. Or, it'll actually be the skill. It isn't some, level 1 garbage version of it. It's literally the shield throw skill. And here is the actual skill. So you can see there, plus 2 to shield throw, 33% chance to retaliate with shield throw, plus 12% block chance, 75% damage reflected back, and plus 1 throwing damage for shield throw per 10 damage reflected to attackers. So it will also scale with damage reflected, which is, that's something. At this point, right now, you can really start my weird build starting to come together. We've got bolts shooting out of us, we've got twirling in a circle, the twirling always crits, and then the twirling can shoot out beams with divine bolts, and then we've got the shield throw, randomly just boink, 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 boink. Good times. And now we're on to good old Build Tester Jones, Lagon. Good. Let's see how this goes. Okay, so the laser takes me out. Great. And I don't have a movement skill because the movement skills are all attacks. Or I could change my heal to a movement skill, but I need my heal to heal me. Yeah, or I'm dead. Because I'm already out of potions and it's been 5 seconds. Second try, we get into it. It's a little spicy with the death laser running around, but, or is this third try? Third try. Interesting fight. It's definitely not boring, right? Like, when I did this with Diablo 4, boring was a thing that happened a lot, whereas this was not boring. It was pay attention or you're dead and you get to do everything again, so it added some, tension to the boss fight and it made it overall more enjoyable. I mean, it's still 20 minutes, but I definitely needed to always be thinking uh, where to be, where to move, finally starting to learn Lagan's attacks and what he is going to do when with what animations, and then managing to just stay ahead mostly of the Death Laser, or just not eating the entire Death Laser, which, and then surviving. Now I have found an idol which has a chance on hit to cast Smite, giving me another funny little thing that this build can do when it hits. Also, with the Snake Poison Desert Land, the Holy Aura, Cure Ailments, Poison Resistance really put in a lot of work in this area. It was really good to just be able to get like 30 stacks of poison and then click a button and then fix it. Yeah, because the poison, yeah, deals damage. Oh man, especially when your DPS is bad and the monsters can just be like, oh, we poisoned you 1,000,000 times. Here we are running up to the Majoss fight. Nothing note happens pre-fight. We end up, fighting a bunch of birds and then a bunch of snakes. The Cure Poison Holy Aura puts in a ton of work. And we do really well against swarms of monsters, which this area has lots of. And then we run up to the Majossa fight. And here it is in its wonderful glory squished down for your enjoyment. Hopefully your enjoyment. There we go. There is the Majossa fight. All 44 odd minutes between. It's roughly 3 phases. The first phase, wonderful time. And then we move on to a phase that was slow as molasses in winter with, she's got a stun and some poison ground and very few attacks that hit you, and it just drags on, and it was one of those fights that was just like, not so great. But then once we get past that kind of second phase and move on to the third phase, where she gets lots more aggressive, that helps a lot and made it a lot more enjoyable. But there we go. You can beat Last Epoch's main campaign as Pacifist, as defined previously in the video. Please like and subscribe if you like what I do. And I hope to see you all real soon, and I hope you have a wonderful day.